Monster Tech is sponsoring a giveaway on my channel. Stay tuned for details on how to enter. Star Citizen started as a Kickstarter way back on October 18th, 2012. To date, it is the single largest crowdfunded project, surpassing over $500 million in funds. The question is, after 10 years of development and the astronomical amount of crowdfunding, are we getting our money's worth? And what do we have to show for it? And I think people are particularly grumpy due to several things relating to this most recent patch, 3.18, which has a number of huge quality of life improvements, new content, and mechanics to play with that should breathe new life into the PU. But it's been delayed. I originally planned on streaming a lot of 3.18 gameplay during the break between school semesters. That obviously hasn't happened. What was supposed to be a live build before the end of the year is, as of writing this script, still in Wave 1 PTU, so I haven't even had a chance to play that yet. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. I really was looking forward to all that fresh content, but I'd also be lying to say that I was surprised. Delays are a major theme in Star Citizen and have led to a lot of grumbling within the community throughout the years. Is it warranted? Maybe. But that's what I want to look at today. To start off, we take a look at Halo Infinite. 343 Industries' latest entry into the Master Chief Saga has been riddled with issues. What was supposed to be Halo's return to the center stage has been a sadly laughable and apparently rushed monstrosity crippled by technical debt. And this term, technical debt, has become part of the zeitgeist for the Halo community. It's the boogeyman that seems to be behind every door. So what is it? Well, as the saying goes, you can either do something right, or you can do it twice. Programming is no different. But when deadlines are too strict and don't allow for proper testing and optimization, people take shortcuts. And a few shortcuts aren't necessarily bad, but when it becomes too much, it turns into technical debt. Essentially, the code becomes a tangled nest rather than a streamlined operation. Try to change one thing and it breaks somewhere else. Making incremental changes becomes difficult, and unraveling all the tangles in a game as complex as Halo is a nightmare. And we can see this reflected in the post-launch support for Halo. Content has been few and far between. A game that used to have regularly rotating playlists and party modes is barren. One of the mainstay features, Forge, is only now getting into the hands of players. There's still no proper customs browser, but honestly the list of missing features feels longer than what we actually have. And that is really upsetting to me. I cut my teeth on Halo 3. That was the first game I really played. I have a lot of fond memories from Halo 3, Reach, and even Halo 4. I skipped 5, as most people should have. Now Infinite has really been a letdown. Seemingly on the opposite end of the spectrum, Star Citizen is still in alpha, 10 years down the road. And we constantly hear that something big is just 2 years out. Just 2 more years. Just another 2 more years. It gets old, but look at what we have by contrast. Mining, for instance, when it first came out, had a totally different UI. While it worked, it was clunky and not as clear as what we have now. In addition to that, though, we now have gadgets, multi-crew mining, hand mining, rock mining, refining, improved scanning, modules, upgradability. Mining today is nearly unrecognizable from its fledgling past. But it's now one of the most refined careers in Star Citizen. And if you haven't tried it, you really should. It's a lot of fun and a great way to relax and grind some AUEC at the same time. And combat is another point of note. 6 degrees of freedom and a complexity rarely seen in other games. Combat in Star Citizen is on another level. And this really stuck out to me when I tried to play Star Wars Squadrons. Now I know these games cater to different crowds, but I felt restricted by the Squadron's flight model, and I quickly found myself yearning to be back in the rich physics environment of Star Citizen. And while at the moment cargo trading is kind of dead due to the limitations on stock sizes, the mechanics themselves there are pretty well defined as well. All this to say that while we are still waiting for a myriad of features yet to come, the mechanics we do get in Star Citizen have a level of polish you're not going to see that often. There's a quote that says, "A good game is only late until it ships. A bad game is bad forever." But CIG has shown a commitment to make each feature the best it can be. A big reason why I am able to let CIG slide so much is that they aren't claiming that their game is done or even good. It's not even a game yet. It's an alpha. It's in active development. Unfortunately, their transparency does function as a double-edged sword. Since we as players get to see so much of what is being worked on, we are also painfully aware of how long it takes to roll out. At the same time, CIG is made to split its focus from developing a final product and maintaining a decent alpha environment. Hands down, Star Citizen would be much faster to develop if they did not have any kind of PU, PTU, or any kind of alpha. If we just got a regular blog post, they'd be steaming ahead much faster. But if they did all that, we wouldn't be getting the same game at all. Without all the player feedback that they really seem to take a lot of, without the funding that the alpha pulls in, Star Citizen might die a pipe dream. Would be faster to develop, but I don't think they would have gotten as far as they have. An important thing to remember here is that CIG is an independent studio. It seems a strange title to apply to a company raking it in as they seem to be doing, but they started out very small. And while they've grown a lot since the first days of development, for most of the game's development cycle, they did not command the level of manpower that they do now. And same goes for the level of funding they've gained. It, as well, has been increasing non-linearly as time goes on. And in that time, Star Citizen has grown both in scope and impact. Star Citizen represents a large number of firsts in the gaming industry. Take volumetric clouds, for instance. Most games have simple cloud paintings way off in the skybox to give the impression of clouds while your character's on the ground. Some simulators have slightly more complex clouds with the trade-off of no FPS mode. And while the concept of volumetrics is not new, the idea of implementing it at the scale of a planet absolutely is. And this leads to truly breathtaking vistas that you just won't see anywhere else but Star Citizen. 64-bit precision is another one. A lot of it goes over my head, and I don't pretend to be an expert. But even I can appreciate the results. I can scrutinize the plastic stippling on a texture and zoom all the way out to take in the entire star system. A system, mind you, that is tens of millions of kilometers across, and it is all real. There's no loading screens anywhere. If you kill power to your quantum drive at any point in your journey, you will be in the middle of nowhere, but it actually exists. It's a place where other NPCs and players can come to and find you. It can't be overstated how impressive the scale of Star Citizen is. Other games exist that have distances of 40 million kilometers, but not where you can also appreciate a single blade of grass. Most games have to make compromises. DCS, fantastic sim, way above my head, very flat textures for the ground. Red Dead Redemption 2 had a massive playable map with a lot of loading screens, but for all the beauty that game was, it wasn't nearly so big as Star Citizen. Let me say it again, you can see the texture of fabric on a character at the same time that you can take in an entire solar system. That level of scale is unheard of anywhere else. Another word that comes to mind is procedural. Just like technical debt is part of the zeitgeist of Halo, procedural is in the zeitgeist of Star Citizens. CIG is producing a plethora of procedural generation tools to handle everything from NPCs to missions to entire planetary surfaces. And it makes sense why it's so important. If you're trying to fill all that impressive scale with stuff, that requires an unimaginable amount of art and assets through more traditional means. So without some way to speed that up, most of Star Citizen ends up being empty space. But procedurally assisted systems like what we've already seen have never been attempted at the fidelity and scale that Star Citizen employs. Just look at the vistas surrounding and filling the space stations at the Lagrange points, or the rivers, the outposts, derelicts, biomes, and the list goes on. For as massive as Stanton is, it really is bristling with different points of interest. As a mechanical engineering student, I have an added level of sympathy for the development process because it is not unlike what I do myself. In fact, on screen is a design I've been working on for one of my freelance clients. He wanted a modular rack system for a number of tools he owns, so I developed this tapered dovetail that you see on screen. This past week, I met with the client and showed him a printed rack and some very basic holders to mount to it. Now that he's seen and approved the rack design, I'm free to start fleshing out a library of different tool holders to mount to the rack. But the point here is that I started small with a simple demonstration, literally just enough to convey the concept and collect feedback. And while the rack itself remains unchanged, the smaller accessories are all getting reworked based on that feedback. I imagine the development of any game, and certainly Star Citizen, follows a similar path. You start with a small demo, get it in, collect feedback, and that informs the final version down the line. What you don't want to do is implement an entire system and then have to gut it later on. So, if we look back at mining, we see small implementations of features bit by bit until we have the more refined version we enjoy today. For server meshing, that hopefully will start out this year, we'll begin with static zones before transitioning to dynamic zones. The baseline features will then enable Pyro to be added in. But once you jump from 1 system to 2-star systems, it's much easier to jump to 4-star systems because it simply builds on the same foundation and technology. Just like how now that I've got my rack approved, making more attachments is easy. With all of that said, how does the apparent delays of Star Citizen compare to the rest of the industry? Well, with a budget of over $2 billion with a B, GTA 6 is set to come out 2025, according to what I've been able to find, and it started development in 2014, only 2 years after Star Citizen. And you know what? It's not the kind of game I'm interested in, but it's wildly popular and highly anticipated. So it makes sense that it gets a big budget. Is it doing anything groundbreaking though? Like the features I've already covered? Not really. And that's not to discredit the developers either. It's still a big game, it's just not a technological revolution in the same way. But it really helps put some of those delays into perspective. If a game that has a map that is only the size of a city can take upwards of 10 years to develop, then why not one that has the most realistic recreation of entire planetary systems? And with the games industry lately rushing many big projects out before they're done baking, I'd prefer CIG to take their time to work out the kinks. In fact, how many times recently have we been burned by the state of modern gaming? I know I was super excited to play Battlefield 2042, the first modern Battlefield in a number of years. But the gameplay you see on screen is my first time playing in 6 months. And it was only so that I'd have B-roll for this video. I haven't really played it much besides that. And maybe that's why I'm not so upset with CIG. They're not rushing out an unfinished project, and it seems that they really want to make a solid product. But doing things right takes time. Doing things at scale takes time. And innovation takes the most time. But to wrap this up, yes, it's taken a long time to get here. It feels even longer because we're along for the ride in a way that developers have never done before. But at the same time, we're witnesses to a technological marvel in the making. So while we enjoy our buggy and sometimes unpredictable alpha, let's try to remember the labor of love it represents and the commitment that CIG has to produce a truly living universe. Now for the Grow the Channel giveaway. This video is sponsored by MonsterTech. They make fantastic products for Sims of all kind. I've been a personal fan of the flight chair and custom mounts that they made for me. Everything they make is solidly built and thoroughly tested. I was particularly impressed with the amount of testing they did on my behalf prior to sending me my custom order. I got regular updates on my project and never had to worry at all. Top-notch customer service and products to match. They are graciously sponsoring a giveaway on this channel for a set of desk or chair mounts. If you want a chance to win, like and subscribe and leave a comment on any of my videos using the secret word. Today's secret word is the cultural collection mentioned for both Star Citizen and Halo. Once this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, I'll select a viewer at random as the winner. Other than that, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. Let me know what you think. I'd love to have a conversation with you down below. And until next time, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.